in the pipeline, education to incarceration. And you've been labeled a prince of Pan-Africanism. Can you explain a little more about the concept of Pan-Africanism and how it can combat that pipeline that we're talking about?
Certainly. Good question. Pan-Africanism, I would say, is the black man and woman's oldest formal political ideology. And Pan-Africanism, summed up in 3 points, would be number one, that all African people are members of one human family. So whether we're in Wilmington speaking English, if we're in Toronto speaking French, if we're in London, England speaking the Queen's English, if we're in Jamaica speaking Patois, if we're in Nigeria speaking Igbo, no matter where we are, we're one family. So that's number one. Number two, we identify on the level of family first. So being an African is more important than our membership in any other organization. Being a Mason is not more important than being an African. Being a Christian is not more important than being an African. Being a Muslim is not more important than being an African. Why? Because the only thing you belong to that God chose for you is your racial group membership. Everything else is superficial, which means it can be changed. You can leave the church tomorrow. You can leave the mosque next week. You can give up the Masonic Lodge. You can give up your fraternity and your sorority. You can give up your professional association. You're African until the day you die. God put you in this community. And so for us, being African is primary. Also, when you look at our challenges that we face as a people, it is our Africanity that is at the basis of that. See, we're the only people in the world who don't rally around culture. We're the only people in the world who don't use their culture as a fence to keep people out who are not interested in adding something positive to it. You look at any other community in America, Chinese are very protective of the culture. European Jews are very protective. Arabs, East Indians are protective. African Americans don't have that pride and protection that we should when it comes to our cultural reality in Malou. And so that's Pan-Africanism. And I would say the third piece on Pan-Africanism, we believe that as the African continent goes, so goes all African people. So that is to say that one of the reasons why Black America are still stuck in our civil rights quagmire is because we haven't connected our struggle to the international struggle. See, no one gets more respect than their international homeland. Chinese get respect wherever they go because China gets respected. European Jews get respect wherever they go. Israel gets respected. East Indians get respected wherever they go because India gets respect. And Africans, wherever you go, I don't care in Jamaica, I just came back from there, okay? London, getting ready to go back. Toronto, I'll be going to China for the first time. Everywhere I go in the world, I don't care where it is, name the country. And I promise you that you do not control the economy. You do not control the political structure. You do not control the schools. You do not control the economics. Nowhere on earth are Black people in control of their economic destiny. And so we say, we all rise together or we don't rise at all.
My question to you, Doctor, is why don't we protect our culture? And how can we start from today?
Well, number one, we have been multiculturalized out of common sense. And what I mean by that, we're the only people who feel insecure about saying, I'm for my community first. Everyone else can do that, but you can't. Any Black person who says that I'm for Black people first is automatically castigated as a racist. Okay? But you will never set foot in the community center of certain other cultures. Never. You would never participate in the religious processes of certain other cultures, but they're never considered racist because Black people are not present. But when you don't have them present in your reality, you're considered a racist. So we've been made to feel insecure about being unapologetically African about what we need to do. But here's the situation. If you don't become unapologetically African, you may not survive the 21st century. I mean, let's look at it. We got out of slavery in 1865. We've had 3 50-year periods since 1865. We're beginning the fourth 50-year period. The first 50-year period was 1865 to 1915. So from the end of slavery to the rise of the Marcus Garvey movement. The second 50-year period was from 1915, Marcus Garvey, to 1965, Dr. King. And then the third 50-year period was from Dr. King until 2015, which I would consider the era of Black complicity, okay? In the era of Black negligence. These past 50 years, we have done more disservice to ourselves as a people than at any other time since our arrival in America. We are more selfish than we've ever been. We are more lackadaisical than we ever been. We are more materialistic than we ever been. Less spiritual fiber than we've ever had. I ain't talking religion. I'm talking spiritual fiber, which could be religious. And now we're in the start of our fourth 50-year period, 2015, okay, which is going to take us from 2015 until about 2065, which will be our 200th year anniversary since the end of slavery. And it don't look good because black people are so insecure about who they are that we're trying to be everything but who we are, failing to recognize that you cannot hide. Everyone knows an African when they see one.
That's good. On that note, we're getting ready to take a break, but I wanted to read something from Dr. Umar's book, and it's a quote from a teacher, well, not a teacher, but it says, "I'm not a teacher, I'm a warden for future criminals." And that was Jennifer O'Brien, who was a former New Jersey first grade teacher. That's crazy.
Yeah. And not only that, we just had a situation in Baltimore 2 months ago, and members of the Parent Association went down there where a teacher put on Instagram pictures of her black students and called them the N-word, hood rats, every deplorable term you could. She was not suspended or fired from the job.
I saw that.
Okay? Also, I know of at least 3 teachers who have called their students the N-word in class, not let go either. Why? Because there's nothing in the teacher's contract with these school districts, okay, that make it wrong for a teacher to call a black child out of their name. Now, if the child would have done that to the teacher, they would have been shipped out. But you have white teacher privilege, where you can basically get away with disrespecting black children all day long. Why? Because the black community isn't organized enough to stop that. And that's why we're starting the Parent Association, because we're going to organize parents school district by school district all across America to show up and show out. They do what they do to our children because they know we're not coming.
Wow.
So, yeah, we're going to take a quick break.
Yeah.
We're going to do our funeral announcements, and then we're going to come back with Dr. Umar, and we're going to talk about some of the solutions that you have for us, Doc. Okay? All right, we'll be right back.
Welcome back to Channel 28. Tonight is simply amazing. We've got a lot going on. Dr. Umar Johnson has definitely blessed us with his presence, but most of all, telling us the pipeline from preschool to prison and what we can do as individuals here in Delaware. So I actually have a quick question from the audience. How you doing, brother? And can you say your name?
I'm doing great. My name's Clifton Skinner.
All right. What's your question for Dr. Umar?
I have a question. I want to thank you very much for showing up, first and foremost. I watch you on YouTube, and I listen to a lot of what you have to say. I'm curious on a few things, but I'm going to try to make this short. So I totally agree with the 80s because I lived through that era. I'm a 70s baby, but I lived through the 4-finger rings, the 22-inch rims, the speakers in your back,
the Benz 190s,
the caps, unicorn, Apple, all that. So I lived through that, and I also, I'm from a family of that. But I've uprised, I went to Dell State, I graduated. I have a background in accounting. I'm a real estate agent as well. But I've seen all that. I'm from a whole list full of junkies. But I uprise. So I've seen kids, even in my family, on the Ritalin, the 80, whatever that stuff is. I've seen all that. I'm curious to know. I'm also a real estate agent. I missed that. It's a little PR too. But I'm going to tell you why I keep saying I'm a real estate agent. Because I have the privilege to meet different levels income of families. So I have the privilege of going to different levels of income, families with different level of income. So we're talking about homes selling for $50,000. A family in a home of $50,000, a family in a home of $250,000. Then I'm up in Hocassin, Greenville Overlook, selling a home or helping the family buy a home of $700,000. Okay, black families. Okay, and they all have children, and it's unfortunate, but there's a difference when I'm sitting at the table and I'm going through a consultation on what to do with this property. In a home, in some homes, I'm gonna say some homes where the families' homes are $50,000 and the family homes are $250,000, and then the family homes are $700,000. So I'm sitting there listening, and I'm listening and I'm observing and I'm seeing how the families and I'm seeing how their children interact with, you know, with a real estate agent there or a person different entering the home. So I guess to say that, to make a long story short, when you're speaking and we're talking about change in our community, like I would like to know, like, who's your target audience, because I just don't believe the people in the hood, the poor people who don't have much means, have the ability, the huge ability to change this whole stratosphere what we're going through. So I believe that the people who are at the elite have the ability to change by pumping resources back into the community. So I hear you speaking with much enthusiasm, but I always just want to know who you're actually talking to help with this change in this.
Good question. My answer would be the target audience is the whole community. It's those on the bottom, it's those at the top, it's also those that are in between. Going back to your point of wealth, one of the biggest things I see, and I'm coming from the psychological side, we're probably the only group in America, the only cultural group who does not believe in intergenerational financial planning. Black folks, whether we poor or rich, we do not plan
That's right.
for our grandchildren's
That's
success.
Right.
That's right.
We plan for ours and maybe our children's. But being a therapist, I end up working with white families, European, Jewish, Latino, all types of people come to therapy. And one of the biggest differences I notice between us and them is they don't consider themselves to be financially set unless their grandchildren's grandchildren are set. So if you ask them, are you wealthy? They don't answer it from a first person perspective. In order for them to tell you that they're wealthy, they must feel that they have enough assets in order for their grandchildren's grandchildren to eat off of their estate. That's not us. We're selfish. We think about ourselves and we think about the next generation. And then when you look at our financial statistics as a people, they're absolutely horrible. We talk about Wilmington, Delaware, the educational outcomes in Wilmington. Well, guess what? We spent $600 million on McDonald's last year, nationally. Black people spent $2 billion on Air Jordans, $4 billion on alcohol, $9 billion on weave and perm for 1 year. With that type of money, why doesn't every child in Wilmington have the prerogative to attend, not a charter school, because they're still public, but an independent African-centered school? Every city in America should have an independent African-centered school. We spend more at the supermarket and on our feet and on our body than we do to put information in our children's heads. Now, there's certain institutions we can't control. You cannot create your own criminal justice system. You cannot create your own legal system, but you can create your own school system. So it's absolutely unacceptable for our boys to be going from preschool to prison when they live in a community that spends $9 billion on hair or $2 billion on sneakers or $4 billion on alcohol. So I say that to say this. Before we can have any other revolution in the black community, political, economic, family, you got to have a psychological revolution. Until black people change the way we think about ourselves and our future, nothing else changes. Because you can take the slave out of slavery, but only the slave can take the slavery out of himself.
Jesus, before we go on, Trippie and I, we definitely have to thank Councilman Sam Guy for allowing us to go over. He's always gracious when we need extra time. He reminds me of Miss Dottie Neal. Miss Dottie Neal be like, yo, go ahead. So
Definitely
we want to thank you so very much.
Yeah, and after we're finished, we want you to stay tuned because Sam Guy is coming on.
Yes.
He has some very important topics that he's going to discuss. So after our interview.